geez, I'm not sure where to pick for my own. But anyway, so I think I'll just start calling out people to go ahead and start. So maybe Elaine, would you mind leading us off about who you are and where you're from?
Elaine Roberts from Sioux Falls, and I'm been around a long time.
Thank you. Tacey? Oh, you might be muted, Tacey.
I was muted, sorry. Thank you. Tacey Dunwoody in Spearfish, South Dakota, Director of Case Management for Benchmark.
Thank you. Sarah Valley? I'm not sure how to say your last name. I'm sorry if I massacre names.
It's Valle. I'm Sarah Valle from here, and I'm a member of the South Dakota Council of Developmental Disabilities, and I have a family member.
Awesome. Thank you. Melissa Floor?
Hi, I'm Melissa Floor. I work at the Office of Special Education and Programs in Pierre.
Arlene?
Hi, Arlene Ponsolette. I'm the Director for the South Dakota Council on Developmental Disabilities.
Deanna?
Deanna Wallman, and I work at the Developmental Center in Redfield, and I supervise. I'm fortunate to work with the training department here, as well as I do the quality assurance for the people's plans.
Brenda Smith?
Hi, I'm Brenda Smith from Sioux Falls, and I'm a family member as well as a Life Course Ambassador.
Thank you. Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick Anderson. I'm from Yankton. I work for Therapy Services, and I'm also a family member.
Awesome. Thank you. Kayla?
I'm Kayla Bitness. I work for the Division of Developmental Disabilities as an intervention support specialist out of Brookings.
Carla?
I'm Carla Miller. I'm the Executive Director at South Dakota Parent Connection. And I also am a parent.
Brian?
I'm Brian Polstra. I am a program lead and an advocate at Disability Rights South Dakota in Pierre. And I am also a parent.
Wonderful. Julie Hand?
Hello, Julie Hand, Interim Director of the Division of Developmental Disabilities, soon to be transitioning back to Assistant Director of the Division of Developmental Disabilities.
Thank you. Letty?
Hi everyone, I'm Letty. I live in Sioux Falls. I work for the Center for Disabilities, and I am a parent.
Thank you. Christy Patton?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm Christy Patton from Yankton, South Dakota. I do quality assurance at Ability Building Services.
Thank you. Carrie Geppert?
Hi, everyone. I am a parent. You already said my name. So I am a parent, and also I work for the state within the Division of Developmental Disabilities and a Life Course Ambassador.
Awesome. Thank you. Our other Julie Johnson-Dresbeck?
I am Julie Johnson-Dresbeck. I'm Transition Services Manager with Developmental Disabilities here in Sioux Falls.
Thank you. I'm not sure who's joining us from Benchmark. It just comes up as Benchmark, but if you could tell us your name.
Well, okay, Jessica, this is Terry Bukowski. Can you see me? I can see myself, but maybe people can't see me.
I can see you, it's just my eyes aren't very good.
Oh, that's okay. So I'm Terry Bukowski, Benchmark Family Support. I'm a regional manager for the Family Support Program, but I'm also a mom of 2 adult sons with intellectual disabilities who access the Family Support Program.
Awesome. Is it Tania?
It's Tanya. I'm
okay,
Tanya.
it is Tanya. Sorry.
It's spelled weird. Tanya Costello from Tyndall, South Dakota. I'm a parent of a son with a disability, and I'm also on the DD Council.
Thank you. Tim?
My name's Tim Reinbold. I live in Redfield. I work for the Department of Voc Rehab as a Voc Rehab counselor, and I serve on the council and the Family Support Council. And my oldest boy has autism and is on an IEP at the Redfield School District.
Thank you. Becky? Oh, did we lose Becky? Let's see. How about Linda?
This is Becky.
Oh, here we go. Hi, Becky.
I'm sorry. I always try to unmute myself on my picture. I'm Becky Israelson. I am a family support coordinator in the western side of South Dakota, and I'm also an ambassador.
Awesome. Thank you. Jody?
I'm Jody Berscheid, and I am the Head Start Collaboration Office Director, and I am housed in Pierre.
Kim?
I'm Kim Percival. I am a program specialist with the Division of Developmental Disabilities in Pierre and also a life course ambassador.
Teresa?
I am Teresa Marzon. I am in between Huron and Redfield in the country. I am with Resources for Human Development. I do the intake and referrals and supervise the case managers here on the east side of the state.
Awesome. Thank you. Linda?
I'm Linda Turner, the State Director of Special Education.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? I don't know if we had anybody else join that I might have missed.
This is Donna Deal. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you, Donna.
Sorry, I had to switch computers. I work for the Division of Developmental Disabilities in the Rapid City office as an intervention and support specialist.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm Jessica Lamb, and I'm the Program Director for Augie Access. So welcome to our meeting today. Thank you, everyone.
Looks like there's one more who joined us.
Got one more?
There's Sarah Carter, I think. Hi, Sarah.
Oh, Sarah.
Hi, sorry, I was just getting off of another call and trying to transition to this one. So, hello.
Hello. Can you tell us where you're from and what you do?
Absolutely. I'm Sarah Carter. I'm with the Department of Education. I'm the Part C Director for the state.
Wonderful. And it looks like we had somebody else join, but it doesn't come up with a name. Could you tell us who you are and where you're from?
Barb Witrowski with Long-Term Services and Supports in Sioux Falls.
Thank you. Okay, I think we got everybody, but if somebody else hops on, I hope they introduce themselves or we can pause to get their introduction. So thank you.
Just a quick reminder, if you have not responded to the poll, if you can just click on the role that best suits you. Real quick, I'm going to take a head count and just kind of see how our attendance plays out today. So I don't want to end it just yet, just in case some of our newcomers haven't responded.
All right, so as I said, I am Christy Patton, and I just wanted to remind everyone of our core belief that all people and their families have the right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their life aspirations in their community. Kim or Julie, are we gonna show the slideshow? Am I going too fast?
I believe Julie is pulling it up right now.
Okay, I was gonna say, do you want me to just keep talking? Because I can just keep talking, keep going.
All right, let it roll, Christy. I'll advance the slides. Thanks for
being
patient.
I was a little ahead of this actually, so.
Well, let me see if I can advance it here. I think I can. There we go. Did that. There we go.
We did
All
that.
right. I'm trying to multitask.
This is where we're at. All right, so why do we have a community of practice? It's just to bring people together to share their concern or passion. And your poll keeps popping up even though I answered it. we want to make sure that we're connecting people that maybe haven't had contact before, provide sharing for people so that they can communicate and collaborate. We want to stimulate learning by using this as a vehicle for communication and mentoring, coaching, and self-reflection. And most of all, we want to help people organize around purposeful action. So not just talk, action. Next slide. So there's a national community of practice for supporting families, and the goal there is to really build capacity through the community of practice across and within states to create policies, practices, and systems to better assist and support families that include a member with IDD across the lifespan. As you can see, we're one of several states in the country that has a community of practice, and there are some more that are working on starting community of practices for charting the life course. So, you know, we want to help make our state better.
You're going to come over for the 2 o'clock one.
I know this information.
Or was it 2
Next slide. So the community of practice state team is really kind of organizing the structure of the leaders that drive the change in the state. And we understand and use charting the life course thinking. We want to identify and develop an infrastructure in the state for other stakeholders to also learn about the framework. And we want to identify statewide specific innovation areas for integrating and implementing the charting the life course tools and practices, and leverage a bridge to the national community of practice opportunities with the statewide stakeholders so that we can learn from other states and what they've been doing as well. All right, I think this was my last slide. If I'm not correct, you can let me know, Julie. I know that we had Elaine volunteer to be our recorder for this. Is that still correct?
Yes.
And that Arlene said that she would be our timekeeper. We just want to make sure that part of our meeting agreements is that we all show respect for all members and all perspectives. Stay on mute when you are not the speaker that's speaking. You can use the chat box if you have any questions or comments that you want to share right away. We want everybody to participate, so please participate and use that chat box. And we can use the parking lot when there's an important topic that comes up, but it's not in today's agenda. We can park it until the next meeting. So if you add it to that chat box, we will make sure to take note of that. So I believe that we are on to Carrie Geppert.
Okay, that's me. All right. So part of the community of practice is that we really want to engage our families, and we want to engage our stakeholders in a meaningful way. So how do we use the community practice to push forward initiatives that the DD Council has developed or the Family Support Council is working towards? How do we all work towards the same goals, engaging our family members as well as our systems? And so one of the things that keeps coming up time and time again is the question of guardianship and alternatives to guardianship. We get contacted at the state from the division quite often from families as well as stakeholders, whether it's community support providers or educators, wanting to give families more meaningful information about what their options are. And so as we were discussing, like the amount of phone calls and questions we get, and even community support providers are providing participant rights under guardianship, it just poses a lot of good conversation, poses a lot of questions that are maybe sometimes unanswered, or we don't know where to find that information. And so as a community of practice, we're going to talk today a little bit about what guardianship is, what the alternatives in South Dakota are for viable options, and then how do we, or what do we need to do to move forward allowing families to make an informed decision about guardianship and alternatives. So we thought we would just start out with just kind of breaking down what some of those alternatives are. We're going to start with the less restrictive and move towards the most restrictive, which is guardianship. In the purpose of just really so we're all on the same page of what we're even talking about. And then we're going to have some great discussion and some breakouts later on where we see areas of need, ideas of how to meet those needs, and how as a community of practice we can move those forward. So we'll just start with the next slide, which is supported decision, transfer of rights. Transfer of rights, we'll start way back in the beginning. So transfer of rights, what does that mean at the age of 18? So transfer of rights is essentially anybody under the age of 18 has a guardian, a parent or guardian that makes substitute decision making for them until they reach the age of 18. When they reach the age of 18, those rights or decision making abilities get transferred over to the 18-year-old. That's the all. When we talk about the all, that happens in everybody's life. Now, what does that mean for aging adults? Sometimes aging adults, they've had the ability to make decisions for themselves and have had capacity to make decisions for themselves, but then they enter a time in their life where maybe dementia or Alzheimer's, or there's some type of medical need that develops a need for intervention on supported decision making or substitute decision making. Our state calls it substitute decision making in a lot of the admin rules, and but it's all of it. It's substitute decision making and supported decision making. So the concept behind it is you're making those decisions in support of that individual. So whether or not they're turning 18 and they need substitute decision making because they lack capacity to make decisions for themselves, or they've had capacity their whole life to make decisions, but then they enter into a stage of life where they're no longer able to make those decisions. How do we know when a person's reached that point? And then how do we know what the options are to intervene for those substitute decision-making abilities? For an 18-year-old, as we all know, I have a 19 and 20-year-old that sometimes I question their decision-making abilities, but they are of age, the rights have been transferred, and so I have to allow them to have that dignity of risk. And so we don't want to change necessarily that just automatically for somebody with a disability. What we really want to do is understand what are the areas that need to be substituted for decision-making, and how best to go about supporting them in their decision-making abilities. Could it be a guardianship? Absolutely. There are a lot of individuals that need full replacement or substitution of decision-making, whereas there's other individuals might need just support in decision-making. And what does that look like for legal interventions? So how do I know which option is best? We'll get to that, but let's talk about the options to start with. Supported decision-making. It's a fancy name for what we all do every day. We ask people we trust for help in making decisions. Sometimes it seems easier to just decide for someone, but by allowing them to make their own decision and mistakes, we teach self-determination and allow for growth. And a lot of states, our state is not one of them currently, but there are several states where supported decision-making is actually a legal intervention. It's written in their state laws as a way to support somebody with a disability who might need that supported decision-making, and there's a contract that is notarized and is considered a legal agreement where that individual, much like an IEP team or an ISP team, where they come together and the person selects the individuals. It could be an aunt that's really good at finances that helps them make financial decisions. It could be a former teacher that just has mentored them their whole life and they really want that person on their team. It could be somebody that's helping them make decisions about supports, whether they services and supports, whether or not they would enroll in a program that's offered by the state or a waiver service. And so the person develops their team and the team agrees on how often to meet. And it's basically your social network and your safety net and your expanded natural supports that help you make decisions in all those different areas of your life. So that's what supported decision making is. We all use it. When I went to buy my first car, I certainly brought my dad along to help. I didn't necessarily allow him to make the decision for me, but I certainly valued his input on whether or not he thought it was a good purchase to make. So supported decision making is a legal intervention in some states. In our state, it's just a way of life and a practice. Next slide. Then we have power of attorney. So power of attorney is still a legal intervention for substitute decision making. It gives somebody the ability to feel a little bit of peace of mind that they're, when somebody maybe is capacitated to make a decision but would lose capacitation, so becomes incapacitated, maybe they have a lot of medical needs that are hospitalizations are common, or financial power of attorney. There's certain times where they are able, we see this a lot of times with individuals with mental health diagnoses, where sometimes in their cycle of their mental health, they're competent to make decisions, but then there's other times where they lose that capacity or competency to make decisions. And so you'll see that power of attorney come into play, because we don't want to necessarily take away all decision-making ability, but we certainly want to make sure that there's certain safeguards in place if there needs to be a legal intervention. So it was commonly used in business and estate planning practices. One competent person, which is the principal, gives another, the attorney in fact, the right to act on their behalf in certain situations. So for an example, way back in the day when this was developed, say I had my own company and I had somebody that worked for me, and I was sending them to a business meeting to make decisions on behalf of the business. I would give them power of attorney to make those decisions, those business decisions on behalf of the company. So that's essentially how it began, and now it's used in common practice for day-to-day life. So healthcare decisions, you just provide a copy to the providers, and then financial management like banking, bills, cell phone plans, because honestly, unless you're on that person's cell phone plan, I don't know if you've ever tried to go and make changes, but unless you're on that cell phone plan, you're not able to make those decisions. So what happens if the person that you are supporting in decision making becomes incapacitated? Now, how do you pay those bills or even find out how much is owed on the bills? So that would be a legal intervention. It doesn't have to go through the court system. It just has to be signed and notarized, witnessing the signatures that both are in agreement. Now, I have to disclose I'm not an attorney. I can't give out any legal advice. This is only just informational so that you understand that there are different options for legal intervention. It's always a good idea to make sure that you're consulting with an attorney if you have any questions on which legal intervention would be appropriate for you. Next slide. All right, next one is limited guardianship and conservatorship. We're actually seeing this a lot more in South Dakota. I think judges and attorneys are really kind of have a better understanding of people with disabilities, and also see, that aging population where they might still be able to make some decisions for themselves. So what specifically do they need substitute decision making, and can we limit the guardianship to just those areas? So a limited guardianship avoids a guardian that is overly too broad and restricts the rights of individuals that really are capable of exercising fully to some degree. It can be expressed limited in time or in scope. So you can ask the court order to be protected for only what's needed. So for an example, maybe an individual is turning 18 and they're still in the education system, and the families are worried about not being invited to an IEP, or that individual signing themselves off of their IEP, or that you're trying to initiate services for an individual that has his own guardianship, but they don't necessarily want those services, but that those services are needed. You can be very specific on what supported decision making, what guardianship, what are the substitute areas that need to be decided for a person that doesn't necessarily take out all of their rights. So let's say, and this has happened lots of times, where somebody turns 18 and they're just not quite at the place where they're ready for making all of their decisions. You know, there's a lot of growth that needs to happen, maturity. And so you can ask the courts to give you limited guardianship, maybe from 18 to 25, just to cover that time frame so that you're encouraging and continuing those services and supports, but that wouldn't be expired at that point. And then you could certainly petition the court and ask for that to be extended if it's necessary. So that's where we talk about limited in time or in scope. I want to have conservatorship for the duration of their life because they really don't understand money. Conservatorship is the substitute decision-making for financial. So maybe they're always going to need financial intervention just because that's not a skill set that they carry and most likely will continue through their adult life. However, you are confident that eventually they'd be able to make decisions on where they want to live and where they want to work and what type of relationships they have. And so you might do limited guardianship for a time frame, and then the scope would continue on with conservatorship. The protected person retains all rights and they have not been granted to the guardian. So it's really important too, if you do see guardianship papers come across, to look to see what the court did specifically order, because just because a family member says, I have guardianship of my adult child, look at that guardianship paperwork because it might have just a scope of what they're making decisions over. Next slide. And then we have full guardianship. We just know that individual lacks the capacity to make decisions. We are still going to offer supported decision making even through our guardianship. Just because you're taking over full guardianship and you have the final say over things, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to if you obtain full guardianship. You want to be inclusive. You want to be supported in those decisions, just like anybody would want to have somebody come alongside them and help them make a decision together. The guardianship would, in fact, though, allow you to have kind of the final say. It prevents transfer of rights if completed before the 18th birthday, and it's traditionally a default option, also the most restrictive. So when children are leaving the education system, or going through those transition plans into adulthood, it is required that guardianship is discussed. But not very often do we see alternatives to guardianship. We're getting better at it. I think we're getting good information out there. But right now we just don't know what we don't know, right? So if there's not a lot of good information out there on alternatives, and even like, how do I even decide what the best option is? Then we can't fault anybody for not providing that information if we don't know what the information is. And so I hope this conversation today will lead us into more ideas and generating thoughts and processes and sharing experiences of what the need is for families and how do we get that need met. So guardians make decisions about everyday life, healthcare, food, living, associations, work, everything. Conservators make decisions about finances and how they spend their money, property, all that good stuff. So next slide. So how do we know? That's a lot, right? That's a lot of information. It's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo. Like, how do we even navigate what our family members are going to need? I'm a 13-year-old. I think that I don't have to think about these things right now, but by golly, 18's 5 years away. And so I really do need to think about not only what type of intervention or supports that she would need at age 18, but how am I doing teaching some of these things? Like, am I doing okay? Are we working on these things? And so this tool for exploring decision-making is awesome because it kind of goes through all those different life domains, daily life and employment, healthy living, and it's all encompassing and questions that we need to ask. Are we working on these things? Because this could be an awesome transition plan for education. But then also, families can be working on at home. So we use the tool for exploring decision-making to say, I can do this without support, would be that blue box. The purple box is, I need support with my decision. And then the last green box would be, I need somebody to make that decision for me. So as you're working with a student or as you're working with your family member, you can kind of go through this checklist and then find out, like, gosh, I have a lot of green, like most of my check marks are in the green box. I'm probably going to want to look at probably full, limited or full guardianship. But if we have a lot of check marks in blue, well, we might be able to get away with just supported decision making, and maybe a few in the purple. Well, then maybe we need to do a power of attorney with supported decision making. So it's a great tool to help families and educators kind of figure out where people are at and what we still need to learn or work towards. And then we have that safety and security support star that really kind of breaks down, again, in the different categories of personal strengths and assets. What am I able to do? What do I already bring to the table? And maybe what skills I still need to develop. Relationships, how can we leverage? Like if I were going to do a supported decision-making model, who would be on my team? Who would be on my family members' team? What technology can I leverage to help me with, maybe I'm not good at finances, but maybe I could use an online financial management software if I have the skill set, you know, and if I don't, then what are my other options? And then community-based and eligibility specific. So these tools and, you know, supporting families community of practice has been awesome about just like real life, tangible, help me figure it out. How do I figure this out? And so these tools aren't just a tool, it's still the philosophy of Charting the Life course, where we want to, that core belief of we want to live, love, work, and play in our communities. And we look at the all, this all, I mean, honestly, like I could do this with my 19-year-old that's at culinary school, you know, to find out where is he at in his decision making, you know, and what skills do we still need to learn. I can tell you right now that if I had to check one of these boxes on whether or not they know how to set up a checking account, they would not get that. That would be a green box for them because their father works for a bank and he just opened their account. So, you know, it's just a really great tool for for all kids transitioning into adulthood, in my opinion, where there's a lot of things that kind of initiate, gosh, yes, that would be a good skill to work on while I'm still in school. And then after you graduate, then what do we still need to work on? Is that attainable, or is that just something I'm always going to need support in making that decision? So, all right, Kim, you're up.
Thank you again, Carrie, for that great overview. I swear every time we talk about guardianship, I learn something new. So what we want to do now is, well, we want to focus on how we, as a collaborative of the community of practice state team, can work towards educating families on the different options of guardianship, because it has come up that within our state, there's a lack thereof of information outlets that teach people about the different options. So we wanted to break up into breakout rooms to have some small discussions regarding what are the areas of need surrounding guardianship and or alternatives guardianship for families. I would like to ask that someone in each group volunteer to take notes and kind of give us a summary of your group's discussion once we come back to the bigger group. But again, we want to answer the question, what are the areas of need surrounding guardianship and or alternatives guardianship for families? Whenever you're ready, Julie.
Kim, do you want me to send, did you say how long we're going to have?
5 minutes. Yes, we're going to have 5 minutes in the room.
So we're going to keep it pretty quick, and it'll take a second or two before you appear in your breakout room with the other people. So here we go. Hi.
Mom, do you know where any cardboard would be?
Yeah, I do actually. Hang on a second. So, I just put a ton of it to recycling. Okay, downstairs in our storage room.
Okay.
Hey, Sarah, did you see an invite to a breakout room?
I did not.
Okay, I'm gonna assign you to one. Sorry, I saw that it was not joined, and I'm a little bit new at this whole Zoom breakout meeting room thing, so I wasn't sure if you had opted out, or I'm gonna send you to one. So hopefully you'll see something pop up on your screen. Okay.
Yeah, I'm having some issues, so I got out on a separate device, so it should work.
Oh, okay, that might be why. Okay, so I'm gonna try to send you to one. So buckle up, and hopefully you pop up. All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
An overview of kind of the things that your group has identified as needs for South Dakota families?
This is Elaine, and I'll report quickly from our group because I think we'll probably hear some of the same things as I listen to Tanya. Our group talked about that there's inconsistency in the kind of information that families are getting from school districts. It varies from district to district, so it's not consistent. Even families don't know where to go for help. Another important discussion was around 504 plans and those young people who might be on might have some of the mental health issues, and there's nothing related to that because it's not part of any checkbox on an IEP. And then how do we get information to families earlier? I thought an important piece that Carrie talked about was we don't have to wait till they're 17 to help families. Those tools could be used when they're 13 or 14 so that you can be teaching your young people those skills. So that's our group.
All right.
I'll go next, and not to repeat, but we also talked about having information early for families and in lots of different ways. lots of different formats and from different directions. And how do we get it out earlier? And you talked about those tools could be used earlier, but I think we got to start back in the early childhood part where through that life experiences booklet, kids start developing those skills and abilities that build on in making choices and decisions. I think that's a real help. We talked about schools and there's lots of resources with TSLP, training for teachers and so on. There has to be some balance too. And I think what you talked about was starting, wait until 17. They can start earlier. There's got to be a balance for schools to all the things they have to address with transition, one of them being guardianship.
All right. Anyone else have any other identified needs besides the ones that have been already mentioned?
Yeah, I just wanted to share real quick. I thought this is good. One thing that came up is a protection issue when guardianship is not established. For those long-term services and supports, you know, sometimes Adult Protective Services gets contacted because there's a protective issue because guardianship wasn't established or there's no interventions or nobody's assisting someone. So I thought that was really good insight. And then also the fear of not being able to come to your student's IEP was a real deal because if they didn't have guardianship, they didn't feel like they could be invited to the IEP meeting afterwards. So.
Okay. Well,
I apologize. We had a fire drill during the group. I just had a question and it came up. So my brother, do I have time for a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's here. Okay. So my mother and I got a call a couple days after my brother had been in urgent care. Actually, my son took him to church and he was in a boot and he was in a wheelchair. And had no idea what was, and had no idea what was going on. And he's his own guardian, which is fine. And if I were to ask him, he wouldn't have told me because he actually calls me like 3 times a day. And he didn't say anything about that he was hurt or if he fell, what was going on. As for guardianship, I guess that alternatives, you know, when you think of the health piece of it, just knowing that, you know, kind of a heads up, you know, he went to because he's one that won't tell you or he won't be able to tell the doctor what is going on. So I didn't know what piece of that is for guardianship, but my mom and I did have a conversation about his health, being informed of health information. So where would that fit?
Well, I'm certainly not an attorney and can't give advice, but you know, we look at what are the areas of support, and then do you need maybe a power of attorney can you go alongside and just answer questions with him as a supported decision-making person, or do you need to have more of a legal document? That's something you could use the tool to figure out. But I would also say that, you know, when people do have guardianship, sometimes they have the impression that they can stop them from behaving a certain way. Or make them tell them things. So if you had guardianship, would it make your brother tell you, you know, more information because you have guardianship? So some of those behavioral things we can't necessarily change with guardianship, but I think that's a great question and these tools might be able to help you.
Okay, thank
Can
you.
I weigh in on that quick? As a nurse and working in a clinic, there are papers that they can sign that gives you permission to ask questions or to call and see what happened to them. Now it's not going to make him tell you that he was there, but if you find out he was there and the papers at the clinic are signed, and the clinic would have these papers for you to sign, you could at least call the clinic and say, you know, I have permission to talk to you about this person. Can you please tell me what happened?
Okay.
So that would be something that would fix it in the meantime until you can get the legal things in place.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Tanya, I'm just kind of thinking, is that like, that would be kind of like a release of information. Like I would have my husband, you know, would be able to ask questions. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
It's similar to that. I can't, you know, I actually retired 1.5 years ago, so I can't remember exactly how it was written, but on in our clinic, on the registration form on the back side,
sure,
there's a place that asks for you to fill out people who can call and ask questions on your behalf and
Sure.
about your care.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Like,
and maybe to me, a release of information is that you can get their records, which that's not what.
Yeah, that's maybe different.
But it would be on the same order.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking of those forms that you have to fill out every year where I can say, you know, you can talk to my husband about billing issues, about my health, you know, things like that. But whereas I might want my mom to be on the contact list for health issues, but not the financial and billing issues. Right? Yeah, that makes sense.
I can't remember what this is called because I have some in my cabinet, but I think I know you guys have heard of it, like 40 Wishes or something. It's a booklet that South Dakota recognizes, and I think in there you can put information down on if you want somebody to be able to speak to you, and that and South Dakota recognizes it as a legal document, and you guys fill it out together, and then you get it authorized or notarized. I'm sorry. And I think that would be a good idea to do that. It covers a lot of areas. And I can pull that out. If nobody remembers the name of that, I can pull one out and send you the information on it. And I think that would be probably a good idea in this instant. And I know when I was at Mayo, my husband was able to make decisions for me even though I didn't have an advance directive. So I know there's some forms that can get filled out for that, and it would be, I can ask him what it was, but so I know there's ways that you can do it without having guardianship.
Okay. Well, this just solidifies more what the need is out there about how people need the information to make the right decisions regarding their own rights and the rights of their loved ones. So if we want to go to the next slide. So based on the identified needs of everything that we've just talked about and educating early and giving families a big picture of what the future can look like regardless of their child's abilities, about being well planned for the aging population, whether it's your parents or grandparents, and making sure that you are educated on the options that are out there for them rather than us jumping straight to full guardianship and stripping all rights away from a person. So based on our identified needs, what and how can we as a collective state team help provide resources to families? So we're going to take another 5-minute breakout session to kind of brainstorm on how we, from all of our different walks of life, can come together and try to develop some outreach to give to family members. Whenever Great. Looks like, oh, we're still getting people back. Give it another few minutes.
Kim, just to let you know, we have about 5 minutes on your section here.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started again. So based on your group's conversations, what kind of ideas have you guys come up with to getting this information to families in creative ways? Anyone would like to start?
I'll start. Oh,
Go ahead, Brenda.
I was just going to say, one of the suggestions was it would be nice to have one place that all those resources, state and national types of websites, resources and stuff, people could access at one place. Knowing, though, that people are going to have a point of entry at the point in time where they're going to access it, maybe a good place to start would be the community of practice pull together those resources for a handout of all the different resources and places that they could access.
That's a ditto from our group too, that if because there are so many different groups, and one of the things we also talked about is families who are taking care of their older family members, and you know, that's a group we need to think about, but having the information in one place, so that might be something the COP can do to pull that together.
So, Becky, okay. Can I ask, or can we ask questions later?
Well, if we have time later, we'll do questions.
Okay, I've had it from the first minute.
Put it in the chat box, Becky.
Yeah, there you go.
Good idea. Okay.
That's a really good idea.
Don't
Thank
want to
you,
lose
Brenda.
it. Let's put it in the chat box.
Good idea.
Okay, did any other groups have any ideas?
So this is Melissa.
Hi. I've been waiting to hear from you.
Oh no. One of the things that our group talked about is realizing that families and others get so overwhelmed with all the information they get. So sometimes we need to make sure that whatever we're providing or is reader friendly or a simple explanation to at least get them started, and then they can dig in deeper. But you know, it gets so overwhelming with all the information someone obtains, especially for family.
It's good.
This is Jessica. I'd like to piggyback on what Melissa said, because our group talked about how, you know, everybody's inundated with paper, and people don't necessarily go to paper to get their information anymore. We live in this technology age where we're watching 2 or 3 minute video clips out there about stuff, and maybe that's how we could get some information out there through our Facebook pages, through little kind of videos that interest the parents and the students, just to get them even thinking about it. But the traditional ways that it's getting out there aren't the ways that people today are seeking information and input. So.
Okay, and I work as a family support coordinator, and there's certain things that we've been instructed on guardianship that we're supposed to be teaching to the families, which the first time I meet with them, we talk a little bit about guardianship, and then I throw it in there every so often. So they're hearing it. They don't really hear it until they're ready to need to do it. But the schools say something a little bit different, and it used to be when our families could purchase or could get some funding from the South Dakota Guardianship Establishment Program. They wanted it done differently than what the schools were telling parents. And I feel like if we're going to do something, we need to include some people from like disability rights that have a lot of experience in guardianship. Include somebody from the school that works with the state group, so that we can all be telling the same information and the right information. So there's got to be a bunch of different groups of agencies that we could get together as we create something like this.
Well, the good news is that our community of practice has all of those resources.
Yeah.
Okay, so it really, you know, the theme is we need consistency. We need the same information getting out to everybody from everywhere. We need to find a way to get all of the resources in one place, and find a way to get that to families and not just in a meeting format. So Julie, if you would proceed to the next slide. We have one more thing to ask of our COP. We would like to invite you to a work group revolving around guardianship. We've identified the need and we want to work towards the change. We're not asking for a work group that'll work 7 days a week, 3 hours a week. We just an hour coming together, trying to find a central place for all of the information to go and for us to roll out information to help our South Dakota families be informed. Go back.
Sorry, hang on. One little scroll of the mouse messes everything up. Sorry.
So if you are interested in joining our workshop, please let myself or Brooke Nelson know. We can be reached on the phone number listed or shoot us an email. If we don't get anyone to volunteer, we may be reaching out to you to join. Okay, go ahead to the next one.
Kim, it's called voluntold.
Hey, exactly. I'm trying to put it in nicer terms. Okay, so with that, oh gosh, sorry, trying to pull up my notes here. So with that, our community practice, we have established goals in part of our DD funding grant, our DD Council funding grant. Is our goals are to reach out to self-advocate and family members, to develop and maintain partnerships with state and local partners, and to succeed in DD systems changes. So from these goals, we would like the South Dakota State team to come together with a common goal, to work together to make an impact on everyday barriers that people with disabilities and their families face. So I would like to just take a minute for everyone to use the chat box and list some barriers that you know that people with disabilities and their families face currently. For example, there's access to mental health services for people with disabilities. There's barriers when it comes to transition age services, and definitely barriers when it comes to enough funding. But we would like to know know all of them that's out there, especially barriers when it comes to education, barriers that come with related to aging, or barriers that come through employment. Transportation, that is a very, very big one. Anyone else have any other barriers that you see that people with disabilities face and their families face on an everyday basis? Yes, crisis services, flexibility with funding.
Sorry, I was just going to ask Tacey, if you in the chat box, if you could specify, is it crisis due to mental health? Is it crisis with, can you be more specific? Because there are several things I think that can create a crisis, and you might be referring to kind of crisis in general and inclusive to all of those different situations. And if so, that's fine. But if you can specify in any way, that would be great for just to have notes and be thinking about.
Yeah, I would say kind of crisis in general, but really when there's crisis, a lot of the mental health type stuff, but also if like a parent passes away unexpectedly and then there's no place for the individual to go, we run into that. Just sad situations that it seems like that families really need help with, that there's no resources. And it's like at the moment, you know, something that can't wait 2 months or even 2 weeks sometimes that we struggle with.
Definitely. Dissolving active guardianship, access to services and supports in rural areas, lack of available programs due to no program or geographical location, eligibility requirements and documentation, consistent information among agencies, transportation, enough staff. Definitely could see the barriers that came with homeschooling during the COVID crisis. All great, well, not great, I should say, all barriers that we could definitely work together on overcoming. So Julie, if you'd be willing to go to the next slide. So from there, we've got another question. How can we, as a collective team, impact the everyday barriers experienced by people with disabilities? What are the ideas on how we could get information out there, or how we could try to help lead system change into resolving some of the barriers? We'll take about 5 minutes, and if someone could volunteer to give a summary back to the larger group, that would be great. Whenever you're ready, Julie.
Hey, Derek.
Hey, Derek.
Hi, Derek.
Well, there hey, Derek. Young, handsome man there behind you, Brenda.
What's that?
I said, there's that handsome man behind you. Hi, Derek.
Hey,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been watching Jackson for a while, so.
He was watching the dog, so that.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Now that we're all back, I am very interested in some of the ideas our groups were able to come up with. Would anyone like to volunteer to go first? Letty, is that you volunteering?
It is my weird, I'm waving, sorry. So, you know, 5 minutes goes way fast, by the way, I just have to say, and though, I mean, I'm like talking and then suddenly I'm not talking. Anyway, so I find, at least for myself and a lot of parents I talk to, that they just are having a hard time finding information. You know, that's the first challenge, is they don't know where the information is or that it is even available. So I think it's important, you know, as a group we talked about, there's still a need for printed materials because there are some locations where internet service is not terrific and so forth. So having multiple methods of delivery is important. Print, online, use social media, whatever, but the message needs to remain consistent throughout. I know I am on several different email lists, and sometimes I get things 3 times, 5 times, 17 times. I wish there was one disability list we could send to if we have something to share that will blast it out to everybody in the state, you know, who subscribes to that. Kind of a pipe dream maybe, but you know, it would be cool because we all are sharing things, and you know, some people are on the same lists and some people are on different lists, but a lot of duplication in disability land as far as communications go, and not that that would solve it, but also I find families struggle with who you can call when you have questions about different things, you know, and I don't know what the answer is to that, but I do know that support groups help with that, to talk to other parents. So but yeah, if we come up with a list of resources, you know, make sure to provide it to everybody so we have it to distribute, would be helpful, I guess. So.
Thank you, Letty. Anyone else want to share their group's discussion?
Hi.
Becky. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Becky.
Okay. There's always, all of us are always asking, we need a resource list of stuff. And I know we can go to 211, but I just think with all the things that the state of South Dakota does, the state of South Dakota could put together a resource guide and keep it current, because I get phone calls from people wanting to get counseling for a child, for a child, for a family. you know, and we don't delve in that area at all. It's so much misunderstanding about what's out there, and people are digging. And I think everybody's life would be better if we had a resource guide that's on the website that everybody could have, and it could be kept updated all the time. And you know, to do that, I really think it needs to be somebody that is paid to do it. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, our group talked about that we need to look at the entire system as a whole and not in the silos. Right now, we get kind of blocked into silos of this or that or the other, and that it's really a disservice to people that there are such separation of services. And we felt like there needs to be more broad trainings across the board that make sure that everybody is being included, and that will help kind of break down that barrier of, we see that sometimes people don't attend different trainings because they think, oh, this is for DD only, or this is for mental health only, or this is for aging only, when a lot of things can be helpful to all the populations. We also said that we had a parent in our group that said that it's really important that they're getting consistent info from all of the agencies and make sure that it's easy to understand and easy to access, not something that they have to dig for. I think that's the main points that we discussed.
Okay.
Kim,
All right.
we're at time and we have just only 5 minutes left
Yes.
for the meeting.
Okay, if anyone has any ideas that are different than the ones that were presented, I'm going to put my email in the chat box. If you could email me that information, I will make sure it gets out to everybody else. So Julie, if you would please go to the next slide. All right, so with this discussion, it's definitely not in vain. What we want to do is to keep the discussion going, keep the topic of potential state team priority areas on future meeting agendas. So what we're going to do is we are going to take the list of barriers and the list of innovation ideas, and we're going to trend the results by theme. When we send out when we send out meeting notes, I will attach a survey to it. So we as a collective team can choose our top 3 priority areas. And then at our next COP meeting in October, we will present those results of the survey to keep the discussion going and to try to trend the themes of our meetings to our priority areas. Okay, you want to go to the next slide?
Okay, so and so there is not one happening right now, but earlier, right after COVID started, I started an online Good Life group offering families some connection, an opportunity to learn charting the life course principles and so on. And I think I started out with about 6 people, and then COVID hit and life kind of changed. Just know that there are opportunities that we could, whether it's families, a group of teachers, people who work with elderly, we could certainly put one together and offer a group for people to learn and practice charting the life course. And if you have interest, you can contact myself, or you can contact Kim or anyone else on the call probably. One other thing, we have been doing a series of webinars every other month, and in September, in fact, it's September 23rd, there will be a webinar, and it's always from noon to about 1 o'clock Central Time. And the next one will be presented by Katie Munson and Becky Israelson, and it'll talk about the life domain of community living. So there's flyers out for that. We can share those in the notes. We do ask people to register so that you get the reminder and the information that'll go with that session. So there's one in November, and also one will be in January as well to finish out the domains, the life domains.
All right, our next meeting will be October 7th from 12 to 1:30. There will be a meeting invite sent out with more information. Stay tuned for information on online Good Life groups. Also developing a community practice overview and updates to our supporting families on the DD page. Next slide. Currently, we have 4 people going through the Ambassador Series: Julie Mendelson, Shannon Torres-Negron, and Patty Smith, and Tana Barish. Yep, I always slaughter the last name. Sorry. Go ahead to the next one. And then listed are current ambassadors in the Southeast region, Northeast region, and Central regions, and Western region.
Just a quick side note, these are great. All over the state, we have people who are really knowledgeable in Charting the Life course and spent some time really digging into each of the Charting the Life course tools and getting a really solid foundation of supporting families and what that means. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to any of our ambassadors. That's what they're there for.
All right, so thank you everybody for joining us. For our closing round, we would like you to enter in the chat box what is one thing you appreciate about our time together today. Please remember, if you're interested in being part of our guardianship work group, please let myself or Brooke Nelson know. Otherwise, stay tuned for the meeting notes to be sent out, along with a survey, and also the tool for supported decision making will be sent out as well. Otherwise, thank you for your time and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.